Hello and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for all the English medium civil service aspirants. Welcome to another session of Economy Weekly Recap, wherein we are taking various important articles which have appeared in different business-related newspapers in the last 1 week, and we will analyze all these articles. And for this video, these are the articles that we'll be taking up. Let's start. The first article. Finance Minister very recently in the Parliament stated that government in the last couple of years has implemented various important reforms under the financial area itself. That is in order to improve the financial situation, the fiscal consolidation, etc. Government has implemented various measures which are not very glamorous but are very important. What are these reforms? Let's try and understand one by one. Point number one. The finance minister announced that they changed the date on which the budget is announced. The date on which the budget is announced, it has been changed. Now let's understand the announcement in detail. Earlier, please understand this. The announcement of the budget was done on the last working day of February. Last working day of February. Government, especially when Mr. Arun Jaitley was the finance minister, the government announced that from 2017, the budget will not be announced on the last working day. Rather, it will be announced on the first working day. And the reason which has been given is simple. Whenever the budget is announced on the last working day, it will put undue pressure on the finances of the states. It will take certain time for the government to pass these budget documents and allow the states to get access to the funds. And many of the points or many of the times, the state governments have already made certain announcement. Now, because there is uncertainty regarding the announcement by the center, after the announcement is done by the center, the states will have to redo or change their allocations. So in order to address this issue of uncertainty, the government has preponed the announcement of the budget from the last working day to the first working day of February. That is the first very important announcement. But before I go forward, let me ask a very simple question. Was the budget always announced in India in the morning? Because if you have seen the newspapers or even watched the budget, Finance Minister announced the budget at 11 a.m. Was the budget always announced at 11 a.m.? If not, then what was the earlier time that was followed by the government? When did Government of India change the timing and why? If you know the answer, please do answer in the comment section. Second very important reform. The second very important reform that has been announced by the government, implemented by the government, is earlier government, whenever the budgets were announced, they used to present the expenditure under the head of plan as well as non-plan expenditure. Plan as well as non-plan expenditure. But now Government of India, especially post the recommendation of Rangarajan Committee. Please remember the name of the committee, Rangarajan Committee. After the recommendation of Rangarajan Committee, Government of India has done away with the idea of allocation of the funds under plan and non-plan, and instead has introduced the concept of revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. And to be very precise, please understand, classifying the expenditure of the government under revenue and capital is much better, is qualitative compared to plan as well as non-plan expenditure. Because the earlier concept was, we will divide the expenses into those expenses which are required to implement the 5-year plans. Because under 5-year plans, various reforms were announced, various projects were announced. For that, the funds were allocated in the budget. Now, the issue is that within these expenditures which have been allocated under plan as well as non-plan, there was no transparency. The government at various points of time, according to their wishes, according to their requirement, could keep on changing the money under the plan as well as non-plan. Now, rather than using plan as well as non-plan, government says we are going to use revenue expenditure as well as capital expenditure classification. And the importance of this is you should have expenditures under capital in order to promote infrastructure development. It is always associated with assets. Capital head is always associated with assets. It will contribute to creation of assets in India. On the other side, revenue head generally talks about the consumption expenditures. That is, in simple terms, expenditures that will not contribute or add to the assets done by the central government. That is the precise reason Government of India set up a committee, the Rangarajan Committee. Based on the recommendations of Rangarajan Committee, we have done away with the concept of plan as well as non-plan expenditure, and we have introduced revenue and capital expenditure. In addition to this, also remember one more point here. Rangarajan Committee also recommended introduction of effective revenue deficit. There is one more committee, Bimal Jalan Committee. Bimal Jalan Committee also recommended doing away with the classification of the plan as well as non-plan expenditure. So that is a second very important reform that has been implemented by the government. Third very important reform. Government of India, that is the finance minister, stated that government has introduced a concept of Treasury Single Account, TSA, Treasury Single Account, and it has also implemented a concept called as Single Nodal Account. A Treasury Single Account and Single Nodal Account. What is the importance of TSA and ESNA? Earlier, understand this carefully. Earlier, government would announce a certain expenditure for a ministry. And once the budget is passed by the government, the funds would be transferred to the ministry or to the state government. Now, the concern is that once the funds are transferred, the department or the ministry or the state government may not use the funds right away. They might use the funds after 3 months, after 6 months, after 8 months. Why not? Because it is entirely up to them to utilize the funds whenever they want to launch the projects. But on the other hand, government will allocate the funds. Government is falling short of the funds for incurring expenses. Now, government will be forced to borrow money from the market because government immediately will not get money. Government will collect the money in the form of taxes over a period of time, sell assets over a period of time, collect money. So one more issue that was faced by the government was, on one side we allocate the funds and the departments, ministries, etc., they may or may not use the funds immediately. They may delay incurring expenditure. And we are borrowing and we will have to pay interest on these borrowings because we are falling short of money right now. So in order to address all of these issues, Government of India introduced the concept of TSA and ESNA. In case of these reforms, government simply says, for any of the expenses that you want to incur, I will not transfer the complete amount. I will transfer certain amount in the beginning. And the state government, if it is a centrally sponsored scheme, state government also has to contribute certain funds. So the state government, central government will transfer the funds into an account. Once the funds are started to be used by the state government, after certain amount is withdrawn by the state government, center would transfer funds. This is basically called as just-in-time financing of projects. So these are certain very important reforms that have been implemented by the government in order to improve the financial resource allocation, utilization, etc. Now, based on this, I've given an MCQ. Consider the following statements regarding central government finances. Rangarajan Committee has recommended introduction of revenue and capital expenditure classification. Statement 1 is correct. In fact, I told you it is the same committee which also recommended idea of effective revenue deficit, ERD. Second statement, the same committee has recommended the introduction of ERD. Statement is true. Right option for the question will be option C. Both 1 and 2 are correct or true. Now, next article. SEBI has rejected NSE's settlement plea. This article appeared in Financial Express Two parts are there to the article. I've pasted both of these parts. Please have a look. Now, let me explain what is the issue all about. Let me make you understand what is the issue all about. NSE back in the year 2009, National Stock Exchange back in the year 2009 introduced a concept called as co-location. The concept or the idea of co-location was introduced. Now, what is this idea of a co-location? Here is the NSE premise, that is, let's say, the office of NSE where the trading takes place. In this premise, various servers of NSE are installed that will facilitate various transactions, buying, selling, etc. Now, NSE under the concept of co-location allowed some of these participants or stakeholders such as brokers, etc. to set up their servers very nearby to these servers. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. Under the concept of co-location, NSE allowed many of these market participants to set up their servers in nearby vicinity to the servers of NSE. And these entities or these stakeholders who are allowed to keep their servers very nearby in the vicinity of the NSE servers, they were supposed to pay certain payment, certain charges to NSE. This concept was introduced back in the year 2009 and this is called as co-location. But why is it important? Why has this co-location come in the discussion now? Is there any issue related to this? After 2010, between 2010 to 2014, there is an allegation that the NSE officials colluded. Colluded basically means came together with some of these the traders in the market, some of these the stakeholders, right, merchants, etc. And they provided lot of sensitive information to these people who have already set up servers under the co-location system. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. There is an allegation, right? And SEBI says, yes, it is true. The allegation is that when the servers were opened or when the servers used to receive certain transactions, certain information regarding buying and selling, under the co-location, some of the servers of other participants in the economy, such as bankers, such as traders, stockbrokers, etc., some of these people were given preferential access to the server information. Just to make it much more simple, let's imagine all of you have written UPSC examination. Results are out. You want to download the PDF and check whether your number is there in the final list or not. What if UPSC will allow quick access to certain number of people and will not give the quick access to many others? So don't you think those who have got quick access will be able to know the results much sooner? They'll be able to get access to the results much sooner compared to others. That's a basic idea. Again, don't apply this in the UPSC examination. All I'm trying to convey to you people is why this access to server is so important. Imagine both of us are traders in the market. Both of us have kept our servers near the NSE servers. But if I know in which part or in which server the trades are going to open, in which server people are going to put an order to sell their securities or purchase other securities, if I know that much before you, and much before in the sense even milliseconds, because the server's speed is so fast, processing speed is so fast, even if I get this information, even milliseconds before you, I can close the transactions much faster, much sooner. So this was the allegation that was raised, and SEBI conducted the inquiry and issued an order. SEBI said, yes, there is a clear-cut case of the issue of giving preferential access to some of the servers, and SEBI issued an order. And this order was basically challenged in an appellate tribunal. Now the appellate tribunal has sent back this particular issue back to SEBI itself. That is what is there in the newspaper. So appellate tribunal says, can you again reconduct investigation? Can you frame the charges once again? Because I feel, this is what appellate tribunal is saying, because I feel there is no sufficient evidence. So that is the reason this has been sent back to SEBI. But the SEBI is of the opinion that there is sufficient evidence and order can be issued based on the evidence that has been put forward by SEBI itself. So that is basically the issue related to the concept of co-location and what is there in the current affairs regarding, right, the co-location. Okay. And one more point. There is this headline, SEBI has rejected NSE's settlement plea. SEBI has rejected NSE's settlement plea. What is this settlement plea here? Please understand this. The accused company as well as NSE came to an understanding. There is a mechanism called as consent mechanism. Under this mechanism, understand this, if there is an accusation that I have been involved in certain malpractices, there's an accusation, then I will settle with NSE, I will make certain payments, neither will I accept or reject these charges. I hope you understand. Neither will I accept or reject these charges. This is the mechanism that NSE, right, has accepted from this, right, company which has been accused of having a malpractice here. And SEBI says, no, we will not accept it. Sufficient charges are there. Go ahead, penalize this company. So this is what is there regarding the concept of co-location in the current affairs. Third article, forensic audit. Forensic audit has been opened into Bandhan Bank's evergreening of loans. What is the issue all about? What is the concept being discussed here? Point number one, there is an issue of evergreening generally discussed even by RBI. Please remember this. Even RBI multiple times has raised concern regarding the issue of evergreening. And what is the issue of evergreening? Simple. A borrower has taken a loan. The borrower is not in a position to repay the loan. Now, to ensure that the borrower will have money to repay the loan, the bank will issue another loan, new loan, using which the old loan is repaid. All of you okay? I'll explain this. Right? I'll repeat it. Please understand this. Here is a borrower. Step number one, borrower takes a loan from a bank. Now, the borrower is not in a position to repay the loan. And now the bank will issue one more loan, new loan, second loan to the borrower. And borrower will use the second loan to repay the existing loan. This is the concept of evergreening of loans. And why this is dangerous? Why this is not preferable? Why RBI is against the concept of evergreening of the loans? RBI says, whenever the banks are involved in evergreening of the loans, it doesn't reflect the true quality of the assets. The NPAs in this bank, because they are evergreening, the NPA numbers may not be very high. But in reality, NPA's number will be much, much higher. And over a period of time, if you keep on evergreening loans, over a period of time, don't you think you will reach a position wherein the borrower has taken two loans now, multiple loans also, and is unable to repay, which is going to create a much bigger pressure on the finances of the banking sector. That is the reason RBI is very, very strict, has been opposed to the idea of evergreening of the loans. That is point number one. Point number two, there is an authority by the name of National Credit Guarantee Trust. Please make a note of this. National Credit Guarantee Trustee Company. NCGTC. What is the role of NCGTC? Government of India has implemented various credit guarantee schemes. We have credit guarantee schemes for microfinance institutions. We have credit guarantee schemes for micro enterprises. We have credit guarantee schemes for providing skilling. Right? We have a scheme by the name of Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme, which was announced by the government, which was promoted by the government during pandemic. Now the argument was, Government back in the year 2013 and 2014 announced one entity, one authority. And the role of the authority, government said the role of this authority will be to ensure that whatever credit guarantee schemes are announced, all of them will be brought under this authority. That is the precise reason NCGTC was set up in 2014, and lot of these credit schemes, credit guarantee schemes to be very precise, which are announced, are covered by this authority. And what is this idea of a credit guarantee? Let me give a very simple example. What is this idea of a credit guarantee? Here is a micro enterprise. The micro enterprise will take loan from a bank and it is not in a position to repay loan. In such situation, these loans to a certain extent are guaranteed to the bank under the concept of credit guarantee. These loans are guaranteed because sometimes what happens is, under various schemes of Government of India, loans are provided without collecting collateral. I'm telling this because some of you will basically say, sir, if the borrower doesn't repay the loan, bank will go to the company and simply take over the asset or the collateral. There are many schemes. I can give you an example. Pradhana Mantri Mudra Yojana, PMMY. What is the essential feature of Pradhana Mantri Mudra Yojana? Under Pradhana Mantri Mudra Yojana, loans are issued up to 10 lakh rupees under 3 products, Shishu, Kishore and Tarun, without a collateral. Without a collateral. So there are multiple types of loan products which are given to various borrowers in the market without a collateral. So in such cases, there is an authority which will provide credit guarantee. And when authority provides a credit guarantee, automatically the cost of borrowing, because it is less risky now, cost of borrowing will be lower. And these kinds of borrowers will find it easier to get loans from the market. So with this objective, NCGTC has been established by Government of India, specifically by Ministry of Finance. Now, what is the issue all about? The issue is that there is one bank, Bandhan Bank. Bandhan Bank has given multiple loans to borrowers and it has taken credit guarantee under various schemes such as ECLGS, Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme, like I said, announced by the government. Or for that matter, there is one more credit guarantee scheme for micro enterprises. So this bank, the allegation is that, has issued a lot of loans and has taken credit guarantee under these schemes. Now the concern is that, are they involved in evergreening? Is this bank involved in evergreening? And second point is this bank creating fictitious accounts in order to give loans and claim guarantee from the authorities? This is a concern. This is a concern which has been raised, and ECGS has ordered a forensic audit into the accounts, right? These kind of accounts, right, of the Bandhan Bank. Right? And the forensic audit is being conducted by a forensic audit company, Ernst & Young. EY will be conducting audit of this Bandhan Bank accounts as such. Now, the head of the Bandhan Bank, the chairman managing director of Bandhan Bank says, there is nothing wrong. We have not committed anything wrong. Whatever information the authorities will ask, we will provide all the information. In fact, in support of the banking activity, the Bandhan Bank head says, the culture of the Bandhan Bank is such that whenever a borrower wants to take a loan, the borrower should have repaid earlier loan. I'll repeat my statement. This is from the interview given by this head of the Bandhan Bank. He said, if a borrower wants to take a new loan, we will ensure that he has repaid existing loan. And once we are sure that he has repaid existing loan, only then we issue the next loan. So there is no question of evergreening practiced by us. There is an allegation, we will submit all the data to the authorities. So these are certain very important points regarding the issue of forensic audit ordered against the Bandhan Bank. Now, based on this, I've given a question. Consider the following statements regarding NCGTC. It has been set up under Companies Act. Statement 1 is absolutely correct. It provides guarantees for export credit. Slightly tricky. Why? Statement 2 is wrong. Export credit is guaranteed by one more authority, ECGC, not NCTGC. I'm sorry, NCGTC. Third point, it is wholly owned company of Government of India. It is the ownership of the company is entirely with Government of India. Statement 3 is correct. So 1 and 3 are correct. Right option will be option B. Only 2 of the above 3 statements are true. Next article. Smart cities yet to become a reality. Now, what is the issue all about? What is the discussion all about? Let's go point by point. Point number 1. Back in the year 2015, government said, we will identify 100 cities and will convert all these 100 cities into smart cities. Understand the story here. The story is very interesting. We will identify 100 cities through competition and we will ensure that all these 100 cities will be converted into smart cities. In the course of next couple of years, between 2015 to 2018, government identified 100 cities through competition and said these 100 cities will become smart cities. And government provided 5 years. That is from 2019 to 2023, these years were given to these smart cities and they expected that these will become smart cities by the end of 2023. I'm pretty sure all of you know this simple calendar concept. All of you know this, that 2023 is over. We are in the year 2024. And very recently government said, no, we will not be able to complete these projects within time period. We will expand the duration of the smart city project till June 2025. So the deadline for the smart cities has been extended. Why? What is the reason? Is there any concern regarding the smart city mission, etc.? Let's try and understand. Point number 1. 100 cities have been identified. All the 100 cities may not have right amount of resources to participate and construct the projects which have been identified under smart cities. Please remember this. Under smart cities, over 7,900 projects have been identified. Over 7,900 projects have been identified. All the cities which are covered under this may not have right human resources, may not have the right amount of financial resources to construct and finish these infrastructure projects. Point number 2. In these 100 cities, in order to implement the schemes, they are supposed to identify infrastructure projects. In a large number of cities, it has been found that the projects which have been identified, they are not correct projects in terms of financial viability. That's a second issue. Third issue. In order to implement smart cities, we expected private sector participation. Private sector participation. We expected that huge amount of investment, for example, under PPP, public-private partnership, will be invested by the private sector and infrastructure will be promoted under smart cities. What has happened? In large number of cities, that is around half of the cities, private sector participation is not there. And in remaining cities, private sector participation, the investment is just around 10,000 crore rupees. And this is, experts say, this is much, much lower than what was actually envisaged, what was actually expected from the private sector to be invested in the smart cities. Next important point. In order to implement smart cities, Government of India said these cities should establish a special purpose vehicle. SPV, special purpose vehicle. And this special purpose vehicle will be responsible for implementation of all the projects which have been identified under smart city. Now, whenever you set up a special purpose vehicle, let's say under Companies Act, in this case, you will have to have a person who will head the special purpose vehicle, who will chair the special purpose vehicle. It has been found that in these smart cities, because it is the state government, local authorities which are responsible for the appointment of the chairperson or the chairman or the head of this special purpose vehicle, it has been found that they have basically used the government bureaucrats to be appointed as heads of special purpose vehicle. And whenever you appoint government bureaucrats as the heads of the special purpose vehicle, what can be the issue? Professionalism can become a problem here. Second, government bureaucrats can be transferred at any point of time. They can be moved from one city to another city at any point of time, from one department to another department at any point of time. So a lot of transfers of these authorities have taken place. As a result of this, proper functioning of this special purpose vehicle has not happened. In fact, when the model of special purpose vehicle was announced, it was expected that private sector would be tapped and experts from the private sector would be appointed to take in charge of the special purpose vehicle, which will basically ensure that private experience will be used, professionalism will be brought in, and the SPV will be working much more efficiently. This has not happened. So these are some of the very important reasons as to why smart city project, which was supposed to be completed by 2023, now has been extended by 2 more years, and now government says by June 2025 we are going to finish off all the projects which have been identified under the smart city. In fact, a parliamentary standing committee, parliamentary panel last year made an observation regarding smart cities. The observation was that in many of the cities, initially the cities identified projects, they spent certain amount of money. Then they realized these projects are not profitable. These projects are not financially viable. They had to change the projects under the smart city. They had to change the project. And the same committee also found that in many of these cities, the projects which have been implemented, in many of them, are much higher than what was considered under smart city. And in other smart cities, the projects which have been covered, which have been completed, are much lower than what was targeted under the smart city project. So these are certain very important points regarding smart city. If you see the headline, you can see that nearly 400 projects of value more than 23,000 crore have been stuck up. And if you're wondering, how can the infrastructure projects be stuck up? I've already told you multiple reasons. Another very important reason that I've not told, but by default, you should understand this because we have discussed about this point multiple times now. Land acquisition problems. Land acquisition problems are affecting even the implementation of smart city project. These are certain important points regarding smart cities. Please be very careful. Next, 2 articles which appeared on 16th of February in almost all newspapers. One was Japan slips into recession. Second one was UK economy slips into recession. Now, please understand the points here. Whenever you talk about recession, concept is simple. Whenever any economy registers 2 consecutive GDP growth rates of negative growth rate or a contraction in the growth rate, that situation is called as recession. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. Whenever any economy for 2 consecutive quarters registers a contraction, registers negative GDP growth rate, this situation is referred to as a recession, a technical recession. And why this is so important? Please understand, already there is a concern that many countries around the world are experiencing either slowdown or recession. In fact, in the USA market itself, last year, various experts stated that there could be a recession experienced by the USA market. So far, it has not happened. But now concern is that if you look at the countries, Japan, which was the 3rd largest country, because of this recession, has slipped to 4th position. And Germany, which was fourth, now has been pushed up into the third position. In fact, Germany is also expecting a recession in the current year. So now there is a lot of concern in the global market regarding the functioning of these economies, because many of these economies are registering recession. But whenever you talk about recession, please understand these are certain points. Although England has registered a recession, there is an expectation that this recession is very mild and the recovery is going to happen very, very soon. In fact, various experts have pointed to the fact that the wages are increasing. The wages are increasing in the market. Unemployment rate is lowering in the market, which is a very good indicator that the economy will bounce back, economy will jump back into recovery very, very soon. But having said so, couple of more very important points regarding this idea of a recession in UK as well as Japan. What are the important points? Whenever you talk about GDP, gross domestic product, you can measure GDP under different methods. One such method is expenditure method. This is very important because this is being discussed in the context of these countries. One method is expenditure method. And how do we measure GDP using expenditure method? Total expenditure done by the government, expenditure done by the firms, and expenditure done by households plus X minus M, that is net exports. In the context of the country, it has been found that the investment expenditure by the firms has been affected. The consumption expenditure of the households also have been affected. So when investment expenditure by the companies is affected as well as household expenditure is affected, automatically, what do you think will happen to overall expenditure, which will basically ensure that the GDP would be lower, GDP would start shrinking. And if you ask me, sir, why is that? Why is that the household's expenditure is lesser? Because in fact, please remember this point. I've told this multiple times earlier also. I'll repeat it again. Nothing wrong with that because you should remember this point. In the context of economies such as India, this component C is very, very important. Household expenditure is very, very important. Reason being, out of the total expenditure calculated in this way, that is basically GDP, more than 60% comes from households. And it has been found that in Japan, with higher inflation rate, household expenditures have been affected. So investment expenditure, household expenditure have been affected. As a result of all of this, as an outcome of all of this, even the GDP has started shrinking. Right? So these are certain very important points regarding the recession in two countries. One is UK and the second one is Japan. Beyond this, numbers have been provided. What was the growth rate in third quarter, fourth quarter, right? How much is the drop in the consumption, etc. Those are not at all relevant for civil services. Next, RBI has asked Visa, MasterCard to halt card-based payments. Interesting. What has happened? What is the story? Story is simple. We, that is me as well as you, all of us have cards. Correct? Me and you, all of us have cards. And when we are having these cards can be credit cards as well as debit cards. Now the issue is that whenever we are conducting transactions, for example, you go to a shop, you purchase a product, you will make a payment using, let's say, a credit card. The seller, right, the seller who will receive money is registered with the authorities, is registered to receive payments with the authorities. And this is required because there is a law called as Payment and Settlements Act. Please remember this, Payment Settlements Act. There is an act, right? And under the Payment Settlements Act, there is section 4, which has been notified or which has been identified by RBI in this instance. So the RBI says, whenever the transactions are happening using cards, the receiver must be registered as a receiver with the authorities. And this is needed. This is important. Why? if you are the receiver, if you're not registered with the authorities, don't you think there can be misuse of fund transfers? This can be used to launder money. Right? The funds can be transferred for unintended purposes. So RBI says, no, it is not allowed. They will have to conduct KYC for all of these purposes. The trader, the merchant, etc., whoever has the authority, whoever is allowed to issue cards, there is a KYC for all of them. And the KYC is required. Please remember, in the earlier situation also, there has been a lot of discussion regarding KYC. Idea is very simple. KYC will bind, KYC will basically connect the account number with the receiver. Is the receiver fictional? Is the receiver a person? Is the receiver a company? Who is the receiver? That amalgamation, that connection is always created through KYC. Right? That is the reason KYC is so important. Now, what is the issue all about? There are certain credit cards which are issued to companies, and the companies use these credit cards to make payments. Right? Let's say I've supplied certain goods or services to you. Instead of making payment, right, that is, let's say through check, etc., you will make a payment through card, credit card to me. But the receivers, the intermediaries, etc., they are supposed to be registered. Now, what has happened here? What has happened here? RBI says, in certain cases, it has been found that the credit cards for business purposes, I repeat, the credit cards which are supposed to be used for business purposes are not being used for business purposes. They are used for some other purposes. For example, they are using credit cards, business credit cards, mind you, not personal credit cards, business credit cards. They are using these business credit cards for making tuition fees, for paying tuition fees. That is not allowed. That is not a business expenditure for you. And what does RBI say? RBI says, if that is the situation, what I will do is, I will basically stop all such transactions. And RBI uses a technical term for this. Please have a look at the technical term. Business payment service providers. RBI basically has stopped, right, all of these transactions using a business credit card which is provided by business payment service providers. Right? And that is the reason why Visa approached RBI, the other company, MasterCard, approached RBI and told RBI, this is an important business model for us. We are not involved in any of these activities. Please allow us to conduct these transactions. And another very important point. Many of you will keep on thinking, sir, how is that possible? How is that possible that the business credit cards are used for making payment to tuition fees? How is that possible? This is what RBI says. They will use a credit card, make a transaction to, let's say, a fintech company. And this fintech company is allowed to receive transactions because they are registered. Now, these fintech company will receive the funds from the bank. Will receive the funds right under the credit card transaction through various other mechanisms such as RTGS, such as NEFT, etc. will make tuition payments. Right? So fintech companies will act as intermediaries. They will act as intermediaries in such transactions. So looking at this modus operandi which has been used by various, right, the stakeholders or various participants, RBI said, we will stop these transactions for time being. And RBI categorically in the recent times has stated, not everybody is participating in this kind of a abuse of the system or misuse of the system. There is only one entity. What is the name of the entity? That has to be clarified by Reserve Bank of India. And so these are certain important points regarding the article. Next article, government to bring in 14 quality control orders amid FTA push. What is this idea of a quality control order? What is the objective of government? Logic is very simple. Let's go point by point. Imagine I'm an importer. Okay, imagine I'm an importer. I'm importing certain product from the external market, and I will sell the product in the domestic market. With the signing of more and more free trade agreements. This is important. Please remember this. With signing of more and more free trade agreements, if Government of India will withdraw or abolish tariffs on products, will abolish tariffs on the products, what might happen? What might happen is certain substandard or lower quality products which are harmful, etc., can be imported into India and they can be sold in the domestic market. You will purchase these products which are substandard. I will purchase these products which are substandard. Government of India doesn't want FTA to lead to this situation. So what does government generally do? They will introduce a mechanism called as quality control orders. Quality control orders. So far, Government of India has implemented 156 quality control orders for 672 products. So far, Government of India has introduced 156 quality control orders for 672 products. And once a quality control order has been issued, what will happen? What is the impact of it? The impact is that, imagine I'm importing, I'll take a very simple example, this marker. A quality control order has been issued for the import of this marker. Now, before I import, distribute, sell, etc., I will have to go to BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards. Go to BIS, get a certificate regarding the quality of the product. All of you okay? I will have to approach BIS, get a certificate regarding the quality of the product. And what is the importance of such an initiative? Government of India says, I might sign multiple FTAs, but by imposing such a restriction, I will ensure that substandard imports will not suddenly flow into India. Point number one. Point number two, if QCO is imposed and substandard products will not come into India, consumers in India will also be protected. The second one. And third very important advantage, if a QCO is introduced, now in order to import it, I will have to get certificates, which means there is additional expenditure. I'll have to approach a testing lab. I'll have to submit samples. I'll have to pay money to get a certificate, etc. So additional expenditure. If there is additional expenditure, the imports will start losing competitiveness. India's products will start gaining competitiveness against these imports. So these are some of the reasons which have been cited by the government, right? Basically in argument of introducing more and more QCOs. And the article basically says the government in the coming year basically wants to introduce 14 QCOs targeting more than 120 products. To be more precise, 129 products. Okay. So government wants to introduce 14 QCOs targeting 129 products in order to ensure all of this. So this is one more article. Next article, by the way, last article for the day. Companies try to introduce new measures or new ploys as a new tax rule looms. What is the argument? What is the issue all about? Point number one, please listen very carefully. There is a MSME Act. Okay, there is an act by the name of MSME Act. Under the MSME Act, there is one section, Section 15. And the Section 15 says, whenever MSMEs will sell the products as vendors, when they will sell to a company, the company has to make a payment in 45 days. Very simple. I'll repeat it again. As per Section 15, whenever MSMEs will sell the product to any other company, when they'll supply to any other company, the buyer has to make payments in the next 45 days. That's a condition. If you fail, there is a penalty for it. Now, in case of India, Government of India says, even though there is a Section 15 under MSME Act, the traders, that is bigger companies, they are not worried about it. In many cases, the payment is done after 60 days, to 180 days. Payment is done after 60 days until 180 days, which means MSMEs are selling, they are finding it very difficult to recollect the money, and as a result of this, MSMEs will come under financial pressure. And please understand this, MSMEs do not have huge amount of financial resources. You don't simply tell, sir, they will have money, they will use it. No, many of the times, because these are they have very limited resources, many of the times they will not have money to pay salaries. Many of the times they will not have money to purchase raw materials, pay electricity bill. In simple terms, working capital pressure is there on the MSME. Now, what should be done? How should we resolve this? The MSME can go to the market, borrow from the market, but they will have to pay interest on it. So Government of India made a certain change to the Income Tax Act. In the Income Tax Act, Government of India introduced one more provision, that is Section 43B H. It is in fact mentioned in the article also. Please have a look at this. Section 43B H. What does the Section 43B H basically say? A supplier, that is, let's say an MSME is a supplier or a vendor. They will sell it to a company. Company will basically sell it again in the market, generate revenue. And whenever the companies have to pay taxes, companies will claim certain expenditure as exemptions. Please have a look at this. Companies will claim certain expenditures as deductions, not exemptions, deductions, because they are saying, okay, I've made the payment, I will use it as a deduction. And the idea of a deduction is very simple here. If deductions are provided, for example, for all of us who are paying income taxes, Government of India under the Income Tax Act of 1961 provides a lot of deductions. And what is the use of deductions? Deductions will help us in reducing our tax liability. Deductions will help us in reducing our tax liability. Now, apply the same logic to a company. Company has purchased certain products from MSME, has sold, has generated revenue. Now they want to pay taxes to the government, will claim certain expenditures like this as a deductions. Now, according to the Section 43BH of Income Tax Act, these kind of deductions will not be allowed. They will be disallowed this year. And if the company makes a payment to MSMEs, maybe next year, if they make a payment next year, then that expenditure can be used as deduction only in the next year tax refund or in the next year tax filing. This is a big headache which has which is creating problems for bigger companies. Why? If these expenses are not allowed to be used as a deduction by a company, tax payable by the company this year will increase. They might simply say, we'll use a deduction next year, so my tax liability next year will come down, but this year I'll have to pay more taxes because there are certain deductions which are not allowed by the government because of this change or this amendment by the government. As a result of this, there are certain activities which are being seen to be adopted by larger companies, bigger companies, to escape from this. What kind of activities? One, many companies have sent a registered letter, registered notice to a lot of these MSMEs asking them if they are registered. And the point of this letter which is being sent by the larger companies is that if a MSME replies saying that yes, I'm registered, then the company has to follow this, make payments. If the MSME doesn't reply according to the law, according to the provision, then the company can simply say you did not reply, hence you will not be covered under these sections of MSME Act. And even if I make a payment after 45 days, after let's say 60 days, after 90 days, I cannot be penalized. I will continue to get deductions. That is point number one. Point number two, many of these buyers are threatening that they should basically submit back the registration. That is, MSMEs should submit back the registration. If they are not registered as MSME, they will not come under coverage of the provisions. That's the second one. Now, some of you will say, sir, why should they submit their registration? What if I don't do that? The company say, I will not purchase it from you then. I'll simply not purchase it from you. Right? You will lose a revenue. You will lose a business. Third one, many companies are issuing a post-dated check. Imagine, right, I'm a company, you're an MSME. You will sell the product to me now. You will supply it to me. I will issue a post-dated check after 6 months. But right now, I'll make an entry saying that I have already paid the money to you. You will wait for 6 months. After 6 months, you will go to the bank, deposit the check, receive the money. Right? This is one more methodology which many of the companies are trying to use to escape from these kind of provisions of Government of India. So these are the various articles that I wanted to discuss for this week. We have discussed totally 8 articles. All the 8 are very, very important, both for civil service examination prelims as well as mains. I hope you liked this video. If you have enjoyed, got certain information from the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Meet you next week. Take care. Have a great day.